It's hard to put into words what living under this kind of financial pressure feels like, but I'll try, because maybe someone else out there feels it too and doesn't quite know how to explain it. I'm 27, working a steady job in marketing, not the highest paying gig but something I thought I could grow into. I have a degree, some experience, and ambition. But every month, it feels like I'm running on a treadmill that's just a bit too fast, the floor slipping under my feet. My paycheck comes in, and the first thing I do is calculate how much will vanish before I can even breathe: rent, utilities, student loans, phone bill, groceries, transport. Then there are the little things, that subscription I can't cancel because it helps me decompress, the occasional coffee I allow myself on the way to work, and the medicine for my anxiety. After all of that, I'm left staring at a number that barely changes, no matter how many shifts I take or freelance projects I pick up. The thing is, the costs keep rising. Rent goes up every year, some years, even twice. Groceries feel like they get more expensive every time I enter the store, though my cart looks the same as last month. Public transportation hikes fares quietly. And utilities? Electricity, water, gas, all climbing steadily. But my salary? It's mostly the same, with tiny raises that feel like a pat on the back rather than real progress. It's frustrating and exhausting. I feel like I'm trapped in a system designed to keep me just getting by, but never really moving forward. That feeling of being stuck isn't just financial, it settles deep inside you. It makes you question your worth, your choices, even your dreams. I remember when I was a kid, I imagined life differently. I thought by my mid-20s, I'd have a stable apartment, maybe even a car, the freedom to travel occasionally, to save some money, to invest in things that make life richer, not just bare. I pictured weekend getaways, dinners out, friends visiting without the awkward tension of "can you afford this?" looming over every plan. But that life feels distant now. I've had to postpone those dreams repeatedly, and each time it chips away at my hope. Instead of buying new clothes or gadgets, I repair the old ones. Instead of eating out, I meal prep to save money. Instead of taking a break, I push through the stress and exhaustion because I can't afford to miss work. Emotionally, it's a roller coaster. There are days when I feel like I'm doing okay, proud of the little wins, like managing to save a bit extra or negotiating a bill down. But those days often slip away into nights where anxiety creeps in. I lie awake wondering how I'll handle the next unexpected expense, a medical bill, a car repair, or even something small that suddenly feels massive. Sometimes, I catch myself avoiding calls or emails because I'm scared it might be bad news, a past due notice, a collection agency, or a landlord checking in. It's like walking on eggshells, constantly bracing for the next hit. The stress affects my relationships too. I don't want to burden my friends or family with my worries, and I'm embarrassed by how much I have to say no to invitations or plans. To cope, I've tried a few things. I keep a strict budget, though it sometimes feels like a straitjacket. I meditate when I can, and journaling helps me process some of the overwhelming emotions. I look for small joys, a walk in the park, a favorite song, a heartfelt conversation with a friend. But even these small anchors can't erase the underlying pressure. I think about the future a lot, even though it feels uncertain. I dream of a day when I won't have to count every penny or feel panic when a bill arrives. I want to travel, learn new skills, maybe start a family. But those dreams sometimes feel like they belong to someone else, a version of me that exists in a parallel life where the economy wasn't stacked so heavily against young adults like me. Despite everything, I'm trying to hold on to hope. I remind myself that this struggle isn't a reflection of my worth or potential. It's a system that's hard to beat, but not impossible. I'm looking for opportunities to grow, to improve, even if it's slow. I know I'm not alone in this. So many of my peers feel it, the pressure, the sacrifice, the frustration. In the end, maybe the hardest part is not the money itself, but the way it makes you feel invisible and stuck. Like no matter how hard you work, the ladder you're climbing is leaning against a wall that keeps shifting away. But sharing this story, being honest about the struggle, feels like a small step towards breaking free. Maybe one day, the system will change, or maybe I'll find a way to change my place in it. Until then, I'm here, still running the treadmill, still hoping for something better. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. I never thought I'd feel this way about money, like it's this heavy, invisible chain wrapped tightly around me, squeezing a little more every day. It's not just that I don't have enough, it's the way everything keeps moving out of reach, like the floor beneath me is slowly slipping away, and I'm just grasping at air. Some days, it feels like I'm barely treading water, and the harder I kick, the more exhausted I get. I'm 27 now. For a long time, I believed if I just worked hard, saved a little, and stayed responsible, I could build a life that felt stable, even comfortable. But that's not how it's worked out. Not even close. The truth is, I'm trapped in this cycle where the cost of living climbs relentlessly, while my paycheck barely budges. Rent has gone up twice since I moved into my tiny apartment 2 years ago. Groceries, utilities, transportation, everything feels like it's quietly but steadily picking my pockets. And I'm stuck wondering, how am I supposed to get ahead when I'm always playing catch-up? Some mornings, I wake up to the gnawing anxiety of bills I haven't paid yet or the looming deadlines for credit card payments I'm struggling to keep current. The weight of these worries creeps into every corner of my day. Even when I'm at work, trying to focus on the tasks at hand, my mind drifts to my bank account and what I can or can't afford. It's exhausting, this constant mental tug-of-war between what I need and what I have. I think about my parents sometimes. They didn't have it easy either, but somehow they managed to buy a home, save for retirement, and even take vacations. I'm not sure when the landscape shifted so drastically, but the reality is, those milestones feel like distant myths now. The promise that if you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps everything will be okay rings hollow when every step forward feels like it's met with 2 steps back. I keep a mental checklist of sacrifices: no dining out, no spontaneous trips, no new clothes unless something literally falls apart. When friends invite me to go out, I often say no, even if I want to go. Sometimes I lie and say I'm busy, but mostly I'm just embarrassed to admit that I can't afford it. It's a strange kind of isolation, feeling left out of experiences that used to feel like the simple joys of young adulthood. I've had to postpone dreams too. I wanted to go back to school, maybe get a master's degree, to open doors to better jobs. But tuition costs, living expenses, and the risk of piling on debt are terrifying. The idea of investing in myself feels like a luxury I can't afford when I'm worried about covering next month's rent. Buying a car, moving out of this neighborhood, or even saving for a vacation, all seem like distant, almost indulgent fantasies. I try to cope the best I can. I make detailed budgets, clipping coupons, searching for sales, and cooking at home more than I ever thought I would. I rely on the kindness of friends sometimes, like when they invite me over instead of going out somewhere expensive. Small things like that make a difference. I've started tracking my spending religiously on apps and have become obsessive about any extra income one can get, even if it means picking up freelance gigs or odd jobs on weekends. But all this hustle still doesn't erase the feeling of being stuck. Sometimes, late at night, I lie awake thinking about what the future might hold. Will I ever feel financially free? Will I ever stop waking up with a knot of worry in my stomach? There's a sadness in realizing how much potential feels stalled. I imagine what life could be like if money weren't always the biggest barrier, a future where I could focus on growth, experiences, relationships without the constant undercurrent of stress. I want to believe that things can get better. That the economy will shift, that wages will rise to meet the cost of living, that policies will change to support people like me who are working hard but still struggling. Sometimes, I remind myself that I'm not alone, that millions of others are feeling the same squeeze, and that collective change is possible. It doesn't erase the day-to-day pressure, but it gives me a thread of hope to hold on to. For now, I'm learning to be gentle with myself. I try to celebrate small victories, a month without missing a payment, a little saved in the emergency fund, or simply getting through a tough week. It's a slow grind, and some days are harder than others, but I'm still here, still trying. And maybe that's something worth acknowledging too, even when the system feels stacked against me. I'm not giving up on the life I want to build, even if it takes longer and looks different than I imagined. I never thought I'd be where I am now, feeling like I'm constantly running on a treadmill that speeds up every day but never gets me anywhere. I'm 26, just out of college for a few years, working a decent job that's supposed to be the foundation for building a life. But somehow, no matter how hard I try, my paycheck feels like it disappears the second it lands in my account. The bills pile up, prices climb, and I'm stuck watching my bank balance shrink, feeling more and more like I'm sinking in quicksand. It's hard to explain the exhaustion without sounding dramatic. The stress is just constant. Like a low hum in the background of every thought, every decision I make. I used to have dreams, big ones. Traveling the world, buying a small place of my own, maybe even starting a family someday. But those ideas feel like luxuries now, distant goals that belong to some other life, some other me. Every morning starts with a calculation: how much money do I have, and how long will it last? Rent alone gobbles up nearly half of my monthly income. Utilities, groceries, transportation, phone bills, each one another weight on my shoulders. Then there are the surprise expenses, the ones you can't predict but can't avoid: a medical copay, a broken appliance, a car repair. They come like storms, and there's never an emergency fund big enough to weather them without panic. I try to be careful. I cook at home more than I go out, skip the new clothes and gadgets my friends post about online, and say no to invitations that might stretch my budget too thin. But even with all that, it feels like I'm just treading water. The inflation everyone talks about on the news? It's not just a number for me. It's the reason the rice and beans cost more than they did last year, why my electric bill was twice as high last month, why the bus fare jumped up just as I was hoping to save for a class that could help me get a better job. Sometimes I ask myself if I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I should be working more hours or finding a side hustle, but then where's the time for sleep or any kind of life? My energy feels drained by the constant worry. I've started to realize how much this financial pressure weighs on my mental health. Some days I'm overwhelmed by anxiety, unable to concentrate or get motivated. Other days, it's a dull ache of hopelessness, a feeling that I'm stuck in a loop with no way out. I remember the days when I believed education would be my ticket out of this cycle. I worked hard, took loans, sacrificed fun and social time. But the job market isn't what I expected. The entry-level pay is barely enough to cover essentials, let alone pay down the debt. It's frustrating. It feels like the system is designed to keep people like me just scraping by, enough to survive but never thrive. My relationships have taken a hit, too. I don't like burdening friends or family with money talk, but they notice when I can't join them or when I say no to gatherings because I can't afford the cost. Sometimes I feel isolated, watching others live their lives while I try to balance bills and sadness. I hate feeling like money controls me more than I control my own life. But I've found small ways to cope. Writing helps, getting these feelings out instead of bottling them up. I've started to track every expense meticulously, just to remind myself that I'm trying. And I reach out for support when I can, whether it's online forums or a close friend who understands. I try to celebrate tiny victories, like making it through the month without missing a payment or finding a coupon that saves me a few dollars. Still, there's a part of me that clings to hope. I imagine a future where I'm not just surviving but building something real, a home with space to breathe, a career that pays for the life I want, not just the life I need to get by. I dream of being able to take a weekend off without stress, of traveling somewhere far away, of feeling free from this relentless financial pressure. It's scary to admit how trapped I feel in the present. Like I'm caught in a system where costs rise faster than wages, where the ladder to success is always just out of reach. But sharing this story feels like a small step toward breaking that silence, toward recognizing that this is a reality many of us face. And maybe, just maybe, by speaking honestly about it, I'm reclaiming a bit of control. Because despite everything, I'm still here, still pushing forward. And that, for now, is enough. It's been months, maybe years now, that I feel like I'm just barely keeping my head above water. Every morning, I wake up with this gnawing tightness in my chest, a weight that hasn't really lifted since I left college. I'm in my mid-20s, supposedly at the start of my adult life, but it feels more like I'm stuck in quicksand. No matter how hard I struggle, the ground keeps pulling me down. The economic situation around me doesn't help. Rent keeps climbing, groceries get more expensive every time I go shopping, and even the little things, like filling up my gas tank or buying a coffee, feel like decisions with consequences. The wages I earn haven't kept pace with these rising costs, and I'm constantly juggling bills and expenses, trying to figure out what to sacrifice this month. It's exhausting. Some days, I catch myself thinking about all the things I want to do, travel, save for a house, maybe even start a family one day, and it hits me like a punch to the gut. Those dreams, once so vivid and exciting, feel like distant illusions now. I've had to postpone them over and over, telling myself, maybe next year. Maybe when I have a better job. Maybe when the world calms down. But the next year always comes with more challenges, more expenses, and no clear path out of this cycle. I remember the first time I really felt trapped by money. I had just landed a job, and for a moment, I thought, this is it. I'm finally independent, but the reality hit fast. The paycheck would come in, and before I could even think about treating myself, there were rent, utilities, student loans, and groceries. Then, the unexpected would pop up, a broken phone screen, a car repair, a medical bill. It felt like a game rigged against me, where the rules kept changing, and I was always losing. Financial pressure has seeped into every corner of my life. Social events? I can't always afford them. Going out with friends means calculating costs in my head and sometimes saying no, even when I really want to say yes. It's lonely, watching others live freely while I constantly count pennies. Sometimes I feel embarrassed to admit how tight money is because I worry about being judged. But the truth is, it's exhausting to pretend everything's fine when it's not. The stress also affects my mental health. I've had restless nights, heart-racing anxiety moments where I'm lying awake, worrying about how I'll pay for next month's rent or whether I can cover a looming bill. I catch myself spiraling into negative thoughts, what if I never get ahead? What if I'm stuck in this forever? It's hard to stay hopeful when the system feels so stacked against people like me. I cope the best way I can. I've become an expert at budgeting, clipping coupons, hunting for discounts, and meal prepping to save money. I try to keep a routine that grounds me, jogging, journaling, even meditation, small things to calm my restless mind. But sometimes, after a particularly tough week, I just let myself cry. It's a release, even if it doesn't fix anything. Despite all this, I still cling to hope. I remind myself that this phase isn't permanent, even if it feels endless. I dream of a day when I won't have to stress about every dollar, when I can invest in myself fully, whether that means further education, starting a side hustle, or saving for a home. I want to feel secure, not just financially, but emotionally too. I often wonder what it will take to break free. Maybe a better paying job, a change in the economy, or just a break from constant emergencies. But mostly, I hope for compassion, from the system and from others, to recognize that people like me aren't lazy or careless, we're just caught in circumstances beyond our control. At the end of the day, I'm trying to survive and hold on to my dignity. This financial pressure has shaped me, but it hasn't defined me. I'm still dreaming, still pushing forward, even when the path feels impossible. And maybe, one day, those postponed dreams won't have to wait anymore. I wake up every morning to the same uneasy knot in my stomach, like a silent alarm that's been ringing for years but no one else can hear. It's the pressure, that invisible weight of financial stress that clings to me like a second skin. I'm 26, juggling a job that barely covers my rent, groceries, and the occasional bill, yet somehow, the expenses feel like a tidal wave I'm constantly drowning in. It's like I'm running on a treadmill set to a speed that keeps increasing, no matter how fast or hard I try to keep up. When I graduated college, I was filled with hope. The idea was simple: get a decent job, pay off my student loans, maybe even save up for a little apartment of my own. But reality hit like a brick wall. The salary offers weren't matching the cost of living, and every month, my paycheck stretched thinner and thinner. Rent went up again. Utilities crept higher. Even groceries felt like a luxury. I started budgeting obsessively, tracking every penny, clipping coupons, cooking at home almost every night, not because I wanted to, but because I had no choice. I watch prices rise on everything: the morning coffee I used to treat myself to, the occasional movie night, even the bus fare. All these little things I once took for granted feel like distant dreams now. The hardest part is feeling trapped. There's this suffocating system where expenses grow faster than income, and I'm stuck in the middle, squeezed tighter every day. It's not just about money, it's about freedom, dignity, and hope. I see friends buying cars, traveling, starting families, and I can't help but wonder if those things will ever be in my reach. The truth is, they feel like a luxury reserved for someone else. Someone who isn't always worrying if the fridge will stay stocked until payday. Some days, the anxiety is almost paralyzing. I lie awake at night thinking about what will happen if my job disappears, or if some unexpected bill comes through the door. I try to push those thoughts away, but they linger like shadows. The constant tension eats away at me, my confidence, my peace of mind. I've had to put off so many dreams: traveling to see my family overseas, going back to school for that master's degree I wanted, even saving enough to move somewhere safer or more affordable. Each postponed dream feels like a tiny piece of my future slipping away. But I'm learning to cope the best way I can. I've found small moments of grace in routines: a walk in the park, catching up with a friend over a cheap cup of tea, or writing down my thoughts late at night. Sometimes, I remind myself that I'm not alone, that millions of others feel the same pinch and pressure. That thought doesn't fix everything, but it helps soften the isolation. I'm also trying to hold on to hope, even when it feels fragile. Hope that someday the system will shift, that wages will catch up, that I'll be able to breathe easier. Hope that I'll find stability, not just in money, but in life. That I'll be able to look back and see that all the struggles were worth something, that they built a version of me who never gave up, who kept dreaming even when it was hard. Sometimes I imagine what it would be like if the numbers on my bank statement weren't a source of dread but of possibility. If I could open my door to a space that felt like home, not just a place I can afford to crash. If I could buy groceries without double-checking prices or skipping essentials. If I could plan a future where money isn't the main character but just a tool to live fully. Those thoughts keep me going, even on the days when it feels like the treadmill is speeding up and the finish line keeps moving farther away. This financial pressure isn't just about dollars and cents, it's about what it means to feel trapped in a world that seems rigged to keep you down. But I'm here. I'm still trying. I'm still hoping. And maybe that's enough for now. I never thought I'd find myself here, feeling like I'm stuck in a loop that no matter how hard I run, I can't get ahead. It's like being caught in a tide that pulls you backward, even when you're desperately trying to swim forward. Every day feels like I'm balancing on a tightrope stretched thin by mounting bills, rising rent, and the constant pressure to keep up with a world that's speeding past me. I'm 27 now, but the weight of financial strain has been with me for years, like a shadow I can't shake off. When I was younger, I had these big dreams: travel, maybe start my own business someday, or just be able to live comfortably without worrying if I'd have enough money to pay for groceries at the end of the week. But those dreams feel farther away every day, almost like they belong to someone else. The economic environment we live in is brutal, especially for people like me who don't have a safety net or a high-paying job waiting on the other side of college. Inflation is a constant demon lurking behind every purchase. My paycheck barely stretches to cover essentials anymore. Rent in this city has become a monster all its own. It's like I'm pouring a good chunk of my income into a black hole, and nothing comes back. Utilities, food, transportation, they all creep up little by little. I'm not buying anything fancy, just the basics, and still, it feels like I'm drowning. I remember this morning vividly, standing in line at the grocery store, calculating every item in my head, trying to decide if I can afford the milk or if I should go for the cheaper brand. That moment, small as it was, made me realize how much my mindset has shifted. I used to shop without thinking twice, picking up things on a whim or treating myself to little luxuries. Now, every choice feels like a compromise. I feel like I'm constantly negotiating with myself, asking, can I really justify this? The emotional toll is heavier than I expected. There's this undercurrent of anxiety that never quite leaves. I catch myself lying awake some nights, my mind spinning through bills and what ifs. What if I lose my job? What if my car breaks down? What if an unexpected expense ruins the fragile balance I've managed to keep? It's exhausting. Sometimes I feel ashamed, like I'm failing at life because I can't make it the way I'm supposed to. There's this stigma around financial struggle that makes it hard to be honest about how bad it feels. I don't want people to think I'm irresponsible or lazy, but the truth is, I'm doing everything I can, and it still feels like I'm barely treading water. To cope, I've had to become almost robotic with my money. I keep spreadsheets, I track every dollar, I hunt for discounts and sales like a hawk. I cook at home almost every night, often meals that are cheap and filling rather than exciting or healthy. I skip social outings, not because I don't want to go, but because I can't afford to. Saying no to friends feels like isolating myself, but it's the only way to survive financially. And then there's the emotional coping, trying to stay hopeful, even when it feels like hope is a luxury. I cling to the belief that things will get better someday, but it's hard not to feel stuck in a system that's rigged against people like me. The gap between income and expenses is widening all the time, and I can't see a clear path out. I've had to postpone so many dreams, traveling overseas, saving for a down payment on a home, going back to school to improve my skills. These things are supposed to be milestones of adulthood, but for me, they feel like distant fantasies. What hurts the most is the feeling of invisibility. The economic system doesn't see me, it only sees numbers. My struggles are reduced to statistics or market trends. There's no room in the narrative for the human cost, the loneliness, the fear, the frustration. Sometimes I wonder if anyone really understands how it feels to be caught in this pressure cooker of rising expenses and stagnant income. Despite all this, I'm trying to hold on to small sparks of hope. I remind myself that my situation isn't permanent, even if it feels like it. I dream about a future where I'm not constantly looking over my shoulder, where I can breathe a little easier, and maybe even enjoy life without guilt. But I'm also learning to be kinder to myself in the meantime, to acknowledge that surviving this system is hard work, and that just getting through each day is an accomplishment. This story isn't about despair, it's about reality. It's about the invisible battles so many of us fight every day, trying to make sense of a world where the cost of living climbs faster than the money coming in. It's about the quiet strength required to keep moving forward, even when it feels like you're stuck in place. If I could say one thing to anyone reading this, it would be, don't underestimate the pressure people are under. Behind every calm exterior, there might be a storm of worry and sacrifice. And for those of us in the middle of it, all we need sometimes is a little understanding, and maybe a reminder that we're not alone. I didn't think I'd still be living in my childhood bedroom at 26. Every morning starts the same, the high-pitched buzz of my alarm at 6:30, the hum of my parents already up downstairs, and the dull ache in my stomach that comes not from hunger, but from stress. I drag myself out of bed, avoiding the creaky floorboards I've memorized since I was 12, and shuffle to the bathroom with a towel under my arm. The mirror stares back, and I look tired. Older than I should. I work full-time at a nonprofit downtown, admin support. It's meaningful work, sometimes. I like the mission, the people. But it doesn't pay much. After taxes, health insurance, and student loan payments, my paycheck barely covers gas, groceries, and my small share of the bills at home. I tried living on my own after college, thinking I'd make it work with 2 roommates and a string of side gigs. But when rent jumped $400 in less than a year and my car needed repairs I couldn't afford, I had to move back. That felt like failing. It still does. I know I'm lucky in some ways. My parents let me stay rent-free, though I chip in for groceries and pay the electric bill. But even with that cushion, there's this constant pressure in my chest. Like I'm racing against time and losing. My friends are starting to get married, buy homes, travel. I keep telling myself that Instagram is a lie, that they're probably in debt too, but it's hard not to compare. Every decision I make is through a financial filter. Can I afford to meet Jess for dinner? Maybe if I skip coffee all week. Can I take a day off to just breathe? Only if I want to eat instant ramen for the next 2 weeks. I used to dream about going back to school for a master's in counseling, maybe open a private practice someday. Now, I dream about paying off my credit card. That feels ambitious enough. I scroll job listings every other night, like it's a bedtime ritual. Entry-level jobs that want 3 years of experience. $20 an hour in cities where rent is $2,500. It's like they're daring me to try. Sometimes I fantasize about quitting everything, moving somewhere cheap and starting over. But then I remember my loans. My car. My health insurance that I can't afford to lose. The other day, I stood in the cereal aisle at the grocery store, comparing prices for 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Over 75 cents. I left without buying anything, just walked to my car and cried. Not because I couldn't afford cereal, but because of what that moment represented, the weight of every choice, the absurdity of how hard it is just to survive. I cope in weird little ways. I keep a spreadsheet of every expense and update it religiously, like controlling numbers gives me some illusion of control over life. I journal. I run in the evenings, because it's free and it quiets my brain. And I talk to my mom more than I used to. She gets it. She and my dad worked night shifts when I was little. She knows what it means to stretch a dollar until it snaps. Still, I feel ashamed more often than I care to admit. Ashamed that I don't have a savings account, that I can't contribute more when my friends are fundraising for causes or buying baby shower gifts. Ashamed that I pretend I'm just being frugal when I really mean broke. Ashamed when my little brother, still in high school, offers to pay for my coffee. There's this paradox that eats at me. I'm working hard, harder than I ever have, and yet I'm standing still. Or worse, slipping backward. My parents believed that if you did everything right, worked hard, stayed out of trouble, went to college, you'd be okay. And I believed them. Now I'm not so sure. I've had to let go of some dreams. The cute studio apartment downtown with exposed brick and plants on every windowsill? Not happening. That backpacking trip through Europe I've been planning in my head since college? A Pinterest board and a fantasy. I haven't given up on everything. I still want to be a counselor someday, but I've tucked that dream into a drawer. Maybe I'll pull it out when things aren't so tight. Despite everything, I haven't stopped hoping. That's the strange part. Some mornings, when the sky's still dark and the world's quiet, I catch myself imagining a future where things ease up. Where I don't have to calculate if I can afford to see a movie. Where I pay for dinner without flinching. Where my job pays what I'm worth and the system doesn't feel rigged. I don't know when, or if, that future will arrive. But I hold on to it, carefully, like a candle in the wind. Because if I let it go, then what's left? Just survival. And I want more than that. Some mornings I wake up and just stare at the ceiling, trying to decide if it's worth getting up yet. The sun sneaks through the cracks in my blinds, warming my toes through the cheap blanket I bought off Amazon 3 years ago. Rent was due yesterday, and my bank account is down to $38.12. I have $21 in cash in a little envelope marked emergency taped to the inside of my closet. I don't know if today qualifies, but it's looking like it might. My name's Maya. I'm 27, I have a bachelor's degree in communications, and I've been working 3 part-time jobs for the past year. I do social media freelancing for a small yoga studio, pick up shifts at a cafe downtown, and babysit for a family in the evenings. I make just enough to stay afloat, but never enough to get ahead. Sometimes I wonder what it would feel like to breathe without calculating the cost of every breath. I used to dream bigger. I had a whole plan. I was going to work for a nonprofit, tell meaningful stories, travel, maybe go back for a master's degree in creative writing someday. Now, the only story I seem to be telling is how to survive when everything, groceries, utilities, even my student loan payments, keeps rising, and my wages don't. Grocery shopping feels like a game of Tetris where the blocks are food items and the budget is the screen closing in. I scan the shelves with my calculator app open, choosing between eggs or milk, pasta or produce. Last week, I cried in the aisle when I had to put back strawberries because they were $6.29. It wasn't even about the strawberries. It was the feeling of constantly being denied small joys. My phone buzzes with texts from friends inviting me out, and I scroll past them. I say I'm tired. I say I have work. The truth is, I can't afford a $14 cocktail or even the Uber there. I've become a master at excuses. I've learned which social events are free, which coffee shops won't mind if I sit with just a tea, and how to smile when someone talks about their beach trip or new apartment. Sometimes I wonder if everyone else is just pretending, too. I cope in pieces. I write in my journal at night, trying to unload the weight. I read poetry on the bus, listening to music that makes me feel seen. I text my sister when I feel like the walls are closing in, and she tells me about her new baby and how tight things are for her too, even though her partner has a full-time job. We laugh about being chronically broke like it's an inside joke, but it's more of a shared ache. The economic environment feels like a game I was never given the rules to. Prices are up, wages are stagnant, and the housing market? Forget it. Every time I even look at apartments, I laugh bitterly and close the tab. I pay $1,340 for a 420 square foot studio with a faucet that leaks and a stove that works when it feels like it. And I thank the universe it hasn't been raised again, yet. Some nights I lie awake with my heart pounding, thinking about what happens if I get sick. Or my car breaks down. Or I lose one of my jobs. There's no safety net, no margin. Just a high wire walk with no harness, hoping the wind doesn't pick up. And then there's the guilt. Because I know I'm luckier than some. I have a roof. I'm not starving. I have my health, for now. But there's a different kind of hunger that comes with being stuck, the hunger for a future that feels like it's always 2 paychecks out of reach. I've postponed so many dreams. Grad school is a fantasy now. Even the idea of taking a weekend off to write or breathe feels indulgent. I used to imagine publishing a book by 30. Now I just want to make it through the month without a late fee. Romance, travel, long-term plans, they're all background noise behind the blaring siren of survival. What's hardest is the invisibility. No one sees the way I flinch when a payment notification pops up. No one hears the mental math I do before saying yes to lunch. I keep it together well enough. I post pictures that look brighter than my life actually feels. I laugh at work, I show up, I try. But I'm tired. Tired of pretending this is normal. Tired of saying, I'm fine, when I'm not. Tired of trying to budget my way out of a system designed to keep me scrambling. And still, I hope. Because I have to. Hope is the one thing I don't have to pay for. It's the warmth I keep tucked under my ribs on cold nights. It's the belief that maybe, somehow, things can change. That the cracks in this system will one day be filled with something better. That I'll write my book. That I'll breathe easier. That I'll look back on this version of me, tired, scrappy, still standing, and know she didn't give up. So I get up. I make coffee with the last scoop of grounds. I put on my shoes. And I head out into the world again. Because what else is there to do but try? Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I didn't always count coins. There was a time, not too long ago, when I could buy a coffee without doing math in my head. Back then, money wasn't a source of shame. But now, it feels like I'm living in a constant equation: income versus bills, wants versus needs, hope versus reality. Most days, I'm just trying to balance the numbers. I'm 27. I work full-time, 40 hours a week at a marketing agency that promised growth opportunities when I was hired 2 years ago. Growth has happened, just not in my paycheck. My rent has gone up 3 times since I moved into my 1-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city. Groceries cost more each month, and don't even get me started on the price of eggs. My student loans, car insurance, and utilities all want their cut. But my salary? It stays still, like a bad joke that no one's brave enough to explain. Every month feels like a slow squeeze. I wake up thinking about bills and go to sleep wondering which one I can afford to delay. I used to love cooking, but now I plan meals like a strategist in a war zone: what's cheap, what lasts, what fills me up. Beans and rice. Pasta again. Coupons and discount apps have become tools of survival, not convenience. It's not just the money, it's what it does to your mind. I walk through stores like a ghost, touching things I can't buy, smiling at displays that are meant for someone else. I used to browse bookshelves and dream about my next read. Now I read price tags like they're warnings. Even when I do splurge on a $4 latte or a movie ticket, I carry guilt around like a shadow. I can't relax. I can't stop doing the math. Some days, I scroll through social media and feel like I'm living in a different timeline. Friends are getting married, buying houses, traveling to countries I've only seen in postcards. I want to be happy for them, and sometimes I am, but mostly I feel small. Like I've missed some secret instruction manual. I was told to get a degree, work hard, be patient. I did all that. And yet here I am, budgeting toilet paper. The hardest part is that it's not just me. Most of my friends are in the same sinking boat, some with side gigs, some with roommates in their 30s, some moving back home. We joke about it because if we didn't laugh, we'd probably cry. But late at night, when the jokes fade and the group chats go quiet, I wonder how long we can all tread water like this. I think about my dreams a lot. I wanted to start a nonprofit, maybe something with mental health or youth outreach. I used to sketch out business plans in college, fueled by late-night ambition and too much caffeine. Now those notebooks are buried in a box at the back of my closet, next to my unused hiking gear and the sweater I keep meaning to repair. I wanted to travel, to see Japan, to write stories about people I met on trains. I wanted to write, period. Not just tweets and email copy, but stories, novels, essays with meaning. But when you're stuck in survival mode, dreaming feels like a luxury. It's hard to imagine opening a bookstore or backpacking through Europe when your checking account is flirting with zero. So, I cope in small ways. I journal, mostly fragments, half-formed thoughts I scribble between shifts or on the train. I listen to podcasts about people who made it, hoping their grit will rub off on me. I meditate when I can, even if it's just closing my eyes for 5 minutes and pretending the weight on my chest is temporary. I've also learned to ask for help, something I never used to do. Pride gets quieter when you're hungry. I've gone to the food bank. I've called my parents when rent came too close for comfort. I've sold clothes, taken surveys, walked dogs on weekends. Each little thing helps, but nothing fixes the system that put us here. Sometimes I wonder what it would take to feel safe again. Not rich, just safe. To know that one unexpected bill wouldn't undo me. That I could say yes to dinner with friends without checking my account balance 5 times. That I could dream without it hurting. I'm not giving up. I can't afford to, in every sense. But I'm tired. I'm tired of being told this is normal, that everyone struggles, that things will get better eventually. I don't want eventual. I want enough. I want rest. I want a future that isn't just about surviving the present. This economy, it's like quicksand. You think you're moving forward, but the harder you work, the deeper you sink. And still, I try. Because what else can I do? I wake up, I budget, I work, I hope. I count my coins. And I keep going. I wake up to the sound of my alarm, not because I'm rested, but because I can't afford to miss another shift. It's 6:45 a.m., and the sun hasn't yet made up its mind. I lie there for a few minutes, staring at the ceiling, already feeling the weight of the day pressing into my chest. I check my phone out of habit. No missed calls, just a few promotional emails from stores I can't afford to buy anything from. I work 2 part-time jobs, one at a cafe and another stocking shelves at a small grocery store. Neither offers benefits. Neither pays enough. Combined, I make just under $2,200 a month, before taxes. Rent alone eats $1,200 of that. My roommate moved out 2 months ago and I haven't found a new one. Every day I pray my landlord doesn't raise the rent again. It wasn't always like this. I went to college because I believed it would open doors. That's what they said, teachers, parents, glossy brochures. I studied English with a minor in digital media. I wanted to write. Still do. But now, between shifts, I can barely hold the energy to form coherent sentences, let alone chase dreams. My degree hangs on a nail above my desk, like a joke I'm still trying to laugh at. The economic climate feels like a slow suffocation. Inflation means groceries that used to cost me $50 now cost $80. Gas is a luxury, so I bike when I can. I've become a pro at stretching a can of beans into 3 meals. Meat is rare. Eating out is rarer. I drink instant coffee now, though I serve handcrafted lattes to customers who think nothing of spending $6.50 on 1 cup. Sometimes I wonder how they do it, how people my age manage vacations, weddings, houses. How they afford dogs that need vet visits and apartments with in-unit laundry. I feel like I'm doing something wrong, like I missed some secret memo. My friends don't talk much about money. When they do, it's in half jokes and vague frustrations. We all pretend we're okay until we're not. Coping has become a craft. I ration my mental energy like I do my groceries. I journal at night, not because it fixes anything, but because it helps me untangle the knots in my head. I go on long walks with cheap earbuds and old playlists. I text my sister when I'm too close to crying. She's only a year older, working in customer service, trying to pay off loans that don't care that her degree hasn't helped her either. Therapy? That's a luxury too. I went twice before I had to stop. $85 a session is more than I can justify. So I read self-help threads online and follow mental health accounts on Instagram, picking at scraps of advice like crumbs under a table. I used to dream of being a published author, of teaching creative writing at a college, of maybe owning a little house with a tiny garden. I'd imagined a life full of color, mornings with strong coffee and words that mattered. That dream is still there, but it feels like it's receding, shrinking into a postcard version of itself. I can't afford to write when my mind is filled with panic over utility bills and rent due dates. Some days I let myself imagine a different life. Not extravagant, just stable. A full-time job with health insurance. An apartment I don't dread coming home to. A car that doesn't rattle when I drive. Being able to treat my mom to dinner without checking my bank account 5 times first. Other days, I'm just trying to survive. To not let the system break me down into silence. To keep waking up, even when the day ahead feels like an uphill climb on broken knees. I smile at customers because I have to, not because I feel it. I say I'm good, thanks when people ask, even when I'm far from it. I've learned to package my exhaustion into something palatable, something polite. The system wasn't built for people like me. That much is clear. Everything is going up, rent, groceries, insurance, tuition for the grad school I can't afford, but wages are stuck in a time capsule from 10 years ago. There's this invisible trap around my life, the more I try to push forward, the tighter it squeezes. Every unexpected expense, a broken laptop, a dentist appointment, a parking ticket, feels like a tsunami crashing through the fragile dam I build every month. But I'm still here. Still breathing. Still hoping that something will give. That maybe one day, I won't have to choose between paying my phone bill and buying groceries. That my dreams won't always be things I store on a dusty shelf in my mind, too expensive to reach for. I don't want much. Just enough room to live without drowning. I used to think by 26 I'd have something figured out, some kind of stability. I never imagined I'd be the person rationing shampoo, counting coins at checkout, or Googling how to stretch a meal for 3 days. But here I am. Every day feels like I'm trying to balance on a wire stretched over a canyon, and the wind keeps picking up. Rent is due, my student loan bill pings my inbox like clockwork, groceries cost more than last week, and somehow, my paycheck feels smaller every time it hits my account. I work full-time at a marketing firm, nothing glamorous, but it's supposed to be a decent job. I have a degree. I followed the map they gave us in school: study hard, go to college, get a job, and you'll be okay. But nobody told us the map was outdated. My mornings start early, alarm at 6:30, bus at 7:15. I used to take Ubers when I was running late, but that luxury evaporated with rising prices. The bus costs less, even if it adds 40 minutes to my commute and smells like broken dreams. I eat oatmeal with water and a splash of almond milk. I stretch over 4 days. I used to care about organic food and protein intake. Now I care about whatever gets me to Friday without my bank app dipping into red. When I get to the office, I pretend I'm fine. Everyone's pretending. We share memes and laugh at viral videos, but there's a quiet tension, like we're all trying to hide the same bruises. I overhear coworkers whisper about side gigs, about living with 4 roommates, about skipping the dentist because who can afford that? We're all just treading water. I stopped going out much. I used to love Friday nights, music, drinks, dancing with my friends, but now I make excuses. Busy, I say. Tired. The truth is, I can't justify spending $12 on a cocktail when I need groceries. Even meeting at someone's apartment comes with a price: the gas to get there, the pressure to contribute something, wine, snacks, even just bringing a smile I don't always have. I never imagined how expensive simply existing would be. The subscriptions I used to see as small luxuries, Spotify, Netflix, are now quietly cancelled. My clothes are threadbare, the soles of my sneakers worn thin. I have 2 jackets, one for mild cold and one for unbearable cold. If it rains, I layer and pray. Emotionally, it chips away at you. The constant calculation, the guilt of every purchase, the weight of knowing a single unexpected expense, a broken phone, a medical bill, a layoff, could spiral everything. My anxiety has become a dull throb behind my eyes, a pressure I carry like a backpack filled with bricks. Some days I feel paralyzed. Like I'm running as fast as I can just to stay in place. I don't tell my parents everything. They'd try to help, and they already do more than they should. My dad's a retired mechanic, my mom works part-time at a grocery store. They're generous, but I don't want to become their burden. I've already postponed visiting home for holidays because the bus ticket is just too much. The hardest part is watching my dreams shrink. I used to want to travel, write a novel, maybe go back to school. I had plans to start a nonprofit one day, help kids like me who grew up thinking success was just about trying hard enough. Now, I just want to keep the lights on. My dating life's a casualty, too. How do you talk about ambition and building a life when your present is filled with overdraft warnings and patched-up jeans? I tried dating apps, but I'd cancel dates out of panic. What if they pick a place I can't afford? What if they see through the smile? I cope in small ways. I journal. I walk after work, even when it's cold, it helps me think. I listen to free podcasts about resilience and mental health. I have a playlist of songs that remind me I'm not alone in this, that other people feel it too. I talk to my best friend once a week. We vent, we cry, we laugh at the absurdity of spending $5 on eggs. Sometimes I fantasize about winning the lottery, not even millions, just enough to breathe. But mostly, I fantasize about a world where living isn't so hard, where people aren't punished for being born at the wrong time. Where rent isn't a monster and your dreams aren't luxuries. I know things won't stay this way forever. Or I hope they won't. I cling to that hope. I keep showing up to work. I apply for jobs, even if they ghost me. I edit my resume, update my LinkedIn, watch free YouTube tutorials on building skills I can't afford to learn in a classroom. I keep trying, because not trying feels like letting the system win. But the truth is, I'm tired. I'm so goddamn tired. And I know I'm not the only one. We were told we'd have better lives than our parents. We were promised. But the promise feels broken, and I don't know how long we're expected to pretend we're okay with that. I still dream, though. Quietly. In those moments before sleep, when the noise dies down and I let myself imagine, a small apartment with a reading nook, a fridge full of fresh food, a morning without dread, maybe even someone to share it all with. It's not much. But right now, it's everything. So I keep going. Because despite everything, I still believe in the possibility of more. I have to. It's the only thing that keeps me standing. It's strange how a cup of coffee can feel like a luxury. I used to drink one every morning without thinking twice, back when I was in college, scraping by on student loans and the belief that I was investing in a better future. Now, at 26, I measure the cost of everything against a kind of invisible scale in my head. $3.75 for coffee? That's half a bus fare. 1.5 hours of electricity. A third of a day's groceries if I'm stretching lentils. It sounds dramatic, but that's where my brain lives now, constantly doing math, constantly anxious. I graduated 3 years ago with a degree in media studies and dreams of working in documentary film. I wanted to tell stories that mattered, give voice to people overlooked or misunderstood. I still do. But the job market didn't care much for my passion. The unpaid internships I took during college didn't pay off the way they were supposed to. I've been working retail ever since, currently as a cashier in a mid-sized grocery chain, clocking in 38 hours a week because 40 would require my employer to give me health benefits. It's clever, really, evil, but clever. I rent a one-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city with my best friend from school, Kayla. We've got a good thing going, emotionally speaking, but financially we're always one emergency away from unraveling. Last month her car broke down and we spent 2 nights eating toast and canned soup so she could afford the repairs. We didn't talk about it much, there's a silent code we follow, a mutual recognition of limits. When someone's about to cry, you offer them your last chocolate bar, not questions. Every month feels like a loop: rent, utilities, groceries, student loan payments, rinse, repeat. I pay $630 for my half of the rent. That's more than a third of my monthly income, and the landlord just emailed us about a $50 rent increase starting in June. Electricity has gone up too, and we had to start unplugging everything at night. The other day I forgot to charge my phone and felt like I'd failed some kind of invisible test. It's not that I don't try to move forward, I do. I freelance whenever I can, filming weddings or doing minor editing work from my laptop. Sometimes I make a couple $100s in a month that way. It helps, but it doesn't shift the ground beneath me. I've applied to maybe 100 real jobs in the last year. Sometimes I get a rejection email. Mostly I just get silence. I've stopped buying clothes unless it's absolutely necessary. I patch socks, sew buttons, and shop only at thrift stores. Even there, I pick things up, check the price, and put them back down again. I walk everywhere I can to save on bus fare. When I visit my parents, I pretend I'm just in the neighborhood, even though I walk an hour and a half to get there. They'd offer to help if they knew, but I can't let them. They're struggling too. Dad got laid off during the pandemic and never found stable work again. Mom picks up cleaning gigs, but she's in her 60s and her knees are giving out. Some nights, when the house is quiet and Kayla's asleep, I lie awake with this tight, awful feeling in my chest. It's like being crushed under the weight of invisible debts, not just financial, but emotional, existential. I think about everything I was told growing up: work hard, get an education, follow your dreams. I did all that. But it's like the rules changed halfway through the game, and nobody told me. The ladder I was climbing turned out to be leaning against a crumbling wall. Still, I try to stay hopeful. It's not easy. Hope, for me, is more like a stubborn ember than a flame. I still dream about making films. I still have story ideas scribbled in notebooks and saved in Word docs. But I've had to put the big dreams on hold. There's no time, no money, no margin for risk. Sometimes I fantasize about quitting everything, moving to a cabin in the woods, and living off the grid. But then I remember I can't afford a cabin. Or the woods. To cope, I write. Short journal entries, letters I never send, scripts for documentaries I might never make. There's a kind of power in naming things, in saying out loud, this is hard. This feels impossible. This isn't what I signed up for. And there's power, too, in small rituals, lighting a candle at the end of a long day, making tea even if it's the cheap kind, dancing alone in the living room to songs from a happier time. Some people say our generation is lazy, entitled. That we want too much, too fast. But what I want isn't extravagant. I want a job that pays a living wage. I want to go to the dentist when I have a toothache without having to choose between that and rent. I want to save a little, maybe travel once a year, have a dog. I want a future where I'm not constantly looking over my shoulder, afraid of what the next month will bring. The hardest part isn't the lack of money, it's the shrinking horizon. The way you stop dreaming big because even the small dreams feel out of reach. The way you start redefining success as simply surviving. There's nothing romantic about struggle. There's just survival, and the quiet hope that someday, somehow, surviving will lead to something more. And yet, I wake up each day and try again. I show up to work, I chase gigs, I send applications. I make dinner with Kayla and we laugh about absurd things, like how the cat from next door keeps stealing our socks off the balcony. I'm still here. I'm still trying. Maybe that counts for something. Maybe, someday, that'll be enough. I didn't used to think about money every hour of the day. But now, it's the first thing I think about when I wake up and the last thing on my mind when I try to fall asleep. It's not just a background concern anymore, it's this heavy fog that sits over everything. I'm 27, living in a one-bedroom apartment I can barely afford, working 2 jobs and still somehow falling behind. When I was younger, I really believed hard work would be enough. I went to college, got my degree, communications, not exactly gold, but something I genuinely cared about. I thought that passion and perseverance would pay off. But now, it just feels like I stepped into a world that moved the finish line the moment I crossed the starting one. Rent is the biggest slice of my paycheck. And every year, my landlord finds a reason to bump it up: inflation, market rates, cost of maintenance. I nodded along the first time, tried to understand. But when you're told your wages are competitive while your expenses balloon, understanding quickly turns to anger. My apartment is decent, but it's old. The walls are thin, and the plumbing moans like a haunted house. Yet it's still considered a steal in this city. My main job is at a marketing agency, 9 to 5, mostly remote, but high pressure. I do freelance work on the side, graphic design, social media packages, odd gigs. I'm good at it, and I like the creative part. But liking it doesn't mean it doesn't drain me. By the end of each day, my brain feels like it's been wrung out. Then I spend my evenings comparing grocery store flyers, scrolling apps for coupons, calculating if I can afford almond milk this week or if it's back to powdered creamer. It's not that I live lavishly. I haven't bought new clothes in over a year unless you count thrift store finds. I don't travel. I don't eat out. My luxury is a $3 coffee on Fridays that I now feel guilty about every single time. I used to dream of saving up for a down payment. I had this picture in my head: a modest house, maybe a dog, a little garden. Not extravagant. Just mine. Safe. But now, even saving feels like a joke. Every time I start to build a little cushion, something happens: my car needs repairs, I get sick and miss freelance hours, or rent hikes wipe it all out. It feels like the universe has me on a treadmill that speeds up every time I try to catch my breath. A few months ago, my childhood friend Clara called to say she's moving abroad for work. I was happy for her, genuinely, but there was this knot in my stomach afterward. She asked why I didn't try applying for jobs overseas or in other cities with better cost of living ratios. I didn't have the heart to say I couldn't even afford the plane ticket, let alone the security deposit on an apartment in a new city. I feel like I'm being left behind while everyone else is finding ways to escape. Sometimes, late at night, I think about what it would feel like to not constantly calculate. To walk into a grocery store and buy what I want, not just what I need. To say yes to a spontaneous weekend trip, or not flinch when someone suggests splitting the bill. I miss being generous. I miss feeling like I have enough to give. Now, even birthdays fill me with anxiety. How do I show I care when I can't afford a gift? I've started journaling again, something I haven't done since college. I don't have a therapist, I can't afford one, but writing helps. I try to focus on small wins. Making it through the week without overdrafting. Finding an extra gig that covers groceries. Learning a new skill that might help me pitch for better paying clients. It's survival disguised as progress, but it's something. Some days, I catch myself resenting people who seem untouched by all this. Influencers who do spend the day with me videos that include midday facials and $200 lunches. Friends who casually mention their parents helping with rent or paying off their student loans. I hate how bitter that makes me feel. But it's hard not to feel cheated when you work this hard and still feel stuck at the bottom. I don't think I've given up, not really. But the dreams have changed. I've scaled them down so many times they're almost unrecognizable. It's no longer about the house or the garden. It's about peace. Stability. Not lying awake at 2 a.m. doing mental math about which bill can be paid late without a penalty. Maybe one day I'll get to that place where I can breathe without checking my bank balance first. Until then, I just keep going. I wake up, I work, I save what I can, and I try to hold on to the parts of me that money hasn't taken: kindness, creativity, hope. Because even though the system feels rigged and unforgiving, I still want to believe there's a version of my life out there where I'm not just surviving, but actually living. It's late again, and here I am, sitting on the edge of my worn-out couch, staring at a stack of unopened bills and the faint glow of my laptop screen. I've just finished recalculating my budget for the 5th time this week. The numbers never add up in my favor. Somehow, the rent is still due, the electricity bill keeps creeping up, and the grocery list grows longer, yet my paycheck remains stubbornly the same, if not a bit smaller after taxes and deductions. It's like running on a treadmill that's speeding up, but I'm stuck wearing heavy boots. I'm 26, and I feel like I'm trapped inside this invisible cage built by rising prices and stagnant wages. I thought by this age, I'd have some breathing room, maybe a little savings, or even a plan to move out of this tiny, overpriced apartment that leaks cold air in the winter. But no. Instead, every day feels like a balancing act on a tightrope stretched thin by the relentless inflation clawing at my expenses. I remember when I first got my job out of college. It was a small win, finally earning my own money, feeling like an adult who could handle her own life. Back then, I had dreams, vivid and bold, traveling to Europe, saving enough to buy a car, maybe even taking a night class to finally finish that graphic design certificate I'd been putting off. But those dreams are gathering dust somewhere in the back of my mind, overshadowed by the harsher reality of making rent and eating enough to keep going. It's a slow erosion of hope that sneaks up on you. Every decision feels weighed down by money. When a friend invites me out, I hesitate, knowing that $20 for dinner or drinks is really $20 I'm taking from next week's grocery budget. I say no more than yes now. I watch my social media feed flood with pictures of weekend getaways and new gadgets, and it stings, not because I'm jealous, but because it's a stark reminder of what feels out of reach. There's a quiet loneliness that comes with choosing to stay home to save money, even when all you want is the company. The stress isn't just financial, it's emotional. There are nights when I lie awake, heart pounding, wondering how I'll cover an unexpected car repair or a medical bill. The constant pressure gnaws at me, sometimes so deeply I feel physically tired. I know I'm not alone, but that doesn't make it easier. It's exhausting to be constantly alert, constantly calculating, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Coping has become a skill. I clip coupons, buy generic brands, and spend hours comparing prices online. I've learned how to cook cheap meals that fill me up without emptying my wallet. I've stopped buying things just because even small treats feel like luxuries now. Sometimes I find tiny moments of relief in simple things: a walk in the park, a borrowed book, a call with a friend who understands the struggle without judgment. But the emotional toll runs deep. There's guilt for not being able to help my family more, guilt for feeling overwhelmed by what seems like basic adult responsibilities. And shame, because society tells you that financial success is a marker of worth, and I feel like I'm constantly falling short. It's hard to admit how often I feel defeated, like I'm failing at being an adult. Yet, despite everything, I hold on to a fragile thread of hope. I still dream, even if I have to tuck those dreams away for a later date. I dream of a day when I can stop living paycheck to paycheck, when I can breathe without fear of bills piling up. I dream of financial freedom, not extravagance, just enough to feel safe and secure. Maybe it means going back to school, finding a better job, or starting a side hustle. The path isn't clear, but I'm still looking. I wish the system understood how suffocating it feels, how the cost of living keeps climbing faster than anyone's paycheck, and how that gap traps people like me in cycles of stress and sacrifice. It's not just numbers on a spreadsheet, it's the emotional weight of trying to keep your life together when everything seems designed to pull you under. Some days, I feel like I'm just surviving, not really living. But other days, I remind myself that this is temporary. That I'm learning resilience, patience, and maybe even grit. I try to be kind to myself for the days when I can't do more. For now, I'm holding on to the hope that one day, my financial struggles won't define my story. That I'll look back on this time as a chapter one got through, even if it feels endless now. So, here I am, balancing on that treadmill, boots still heavy, heart still beating, still trying to find a way forward. Because giving up isn't an option, even when it feels like the system is set up against me. I'm just trying to take it one day at a time, one breath at a time, hoping that the weight will ease, and the dreams that feel so far away will one day come closer into reach. I never thought I'd feel this way in my mid-20s, like I'm stuck in a hamster wheel that's spinning faster than I can run, and no matter how hard I try, I'm just not getting anywhere. Every morning, I wake up with this sinking feeling in my chest, like the weight of all the bills, rents, and loans is pressing down on me before I even open my eyes. The world keeps telling me to dream big, to build a future, but the reality I live in feels like it's designed to keep me small, barely surviving. It started out like most people's stories, I guess. I graduated college, hopeful and eager to carve out a path for myself. I found a decent job, not glamorous, but steady. My first paycheck felt like a victory. I could finally breathe a little easier knowing I had some money coming in. But that relief didn't last long. Rent prices in my city shot up faster than I could keep track of. Utilities, groceries, transportation, they all crept higher every month. Meanwhile, my salary remained stubbornly stagnant, barely adjusting for the rising cost of living. It's like the world expects me to get more out of less, but I'm running on empty. Sometimes I sit down and do the math, over and over again, trying to find a way out. But the numbers never lie, my expenses outpace my income. I'm paying more on rent than I ever imagined I would, which means I cut corners everywhere else. Eating out? Forget it. Going out with friends? Maybe once every few months, if I'm lucky. I used to love photography, but now buying a new lens feels like a luxury I can't afford, so the camera sits in my closet gathering dust. Every little joy feels like a sacrifice I have to make just to keep the lights on. It's hard to describe the emotional toll. On the surface, I try to appear put together. I smile, I joke, I act like I have it all under control. But inside, there's this persistent gnawing anxiety that never quite goes away. It's exhausting, worrying about whether I'll have enough to cover rent next month, or if an unexpected expense will wipe out what little savings I've managed to build. I feel like I'm constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop, like financial disaster is just around the corner, ready to swallow me whole. There are days when I question my own worth. The system makes it so easy to feel invisible, like I'm just another statistic of a generation drowning in debt and uncertainty. Sometimes, I scroll through social media and see people my age traveling, buying homes, or starting families, and I can't help but feel left behind. It's a bitter comparison because I know I'm working just as hard, if not harder, but the deck feels stacked against me. I'm trapped in a cycle where expenses grow faster than my income, and no matter how much I hustle, the gap only widens. Coping isn't easy. I try to stay grounded by focusing on small wins, making my own coffee instead of buying it, walking instead of taking the bus, cutting back on streaming services. But these small victories often feel like band-aids on a deep wound. Sometimes, I escape into books or music, losing myself in stories and melodies that remind me there's more to life than numbers on a spreadsheet. On tough days, I reach out to a few close friends who understand, even if they can't fully fix the problem. Their support is a lifeline, a reminder that I'm not alone in this struggle. I've had to postpone dreams that once felt so vivid. The idea of traveling the world, learning new languages, or even just moving to a neighborhood with more greenery now seems like a distant fantasy. I used to imagine a future where I could buy a little apartment, maybe adopt a dog, and build a life filled with creativity and freedom. Now, I'm just trying to keep my head above water, pay the bills, save a little, and hope for a raise or a new opportunity. But despite all the pressure and uncertainty, there's still a flicker of hope inside me. I hold on to the belief that this isn't the end of my story, just a difficult chapter. I dream of breaking free from this system that feels rigged against people like me, of finding a way to grow my income, to build wealth, and to live without constant fear of financial collapse. Maybe that means going back to school, switching careers, or starting a side hustle. I don't have the answers yet, but I'm determined to keep searching. Writing this down helps me feel less alone and more understood. If anything, I want whoever reads this to know that behind the adulting facade, there are real struggles, quiet battles fought daily with invisible foes like rising rents and stagnant wages. It's okay to admit that sometimes, it's just too much. But it's also important to keep dreaming, even if those dreams have to wait for a while. Because one day, I hope to look back and see that the grind was worth it, that I managed to find my way out of the trap, step by step, even when it felt impossible. It's been a long time since I felt truly free, like I wasn't constantly caught in a trap with no way out. Every morning, I wake up to the same nagging pressure. How am I going to make it through another month? The numbers never lie. Rent, utilities, groceries, phone bill, student loan payments, all stacking up higher than my paycheck can handle. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. I'm 26 now. Just a few years out of college, and I had all these dreams, big plans about traveling, maybe starting my own business someday, or even just having enough money to enjoy a decent night out once in a while. But those dreams feel farther away every day. The cost of living keeps rising, faster than my income grows. I've worked the same job for over 2 years, no raise yet, just the same steady paycheck that barely covers the essentials. Every decision I make is weighed down by dollars and cents. Should I get that new laptop I need for work? No, not this month. The bus fare has gone up again, so maybe I walk to save a couple of bucks, even if it means I'm late or exhausted. I used to love cooking, experimenting with new recipes, but now it's all about cheap, filling meals that I can make quickly. Sometimes, I skip meals to stretch what little I have, even though I know it's not healthy. The worst part is how this constant financial strain chips away at your self-worth. It's like a background hum of anxiety that never really stops. I lie awake at night, worrying about the future. Will I ever be able to save anything? Will I always be stuck just barely scraping by? I'm haunted by this feeling that no matter what I do, the system is rigged. Expenses keep climbing, but wages don't. And every time I think I've made a bit of progress, an unexpected bill or expense pulls me back. Sometimes, it feels like I'm living in a cage, but the bars are invisible. I see people around me getting promotions, buying homes, starting families, and I can't help but feel left behind, even though I work just as hard. I'm constantly asking myself, what am I missing? Why does this feel so much harder for me? It's exhausting to keep pretending I'm okay when inside, I'm barely holding it together. I cope the best way I can, small comforts, little pockets of relief. I call my best friend almost every night, even if it's just to vent. We laugh about silly things to distract ourselves from the weight of it all. I've started journaling, pouring my frustrations onto paper, because it helps me feel less alone in this. And sometimes, I let myself daydream about what life could be like if money wasn't a chain wrapped around my ankles. The hardest thing, though, is the dreams I've had to put on hold. I wanted to travel, to see the world beyond my city's limits. I dreamed about going back to school for something I'm passionate about, maybe even changing careers. I hoped to save enough to move into a nicer place or buy a car, simple things that others seem to take for granted. But every dollar I make is swallowed up by bills and necessities, leaving nothing left for those aspirations. It's not just about the money, it's the toll this constant struggle takes on my mental health. Some days, the weight of it all makes it hard to get out of bed. The stress sometimes feels suffocating, and I worry about what this will do to me if it goes on much longer. I don't want to lose myself in this grind. Yet, despite everything, I'm holding on to hope. Not the flashy, naive kind, but a quiet, stubborn hope that maybe things can get better. I remind myself that my current situation doesn't define my entire life. Maybe one day, I'll find a job that pays what I deserve or learn how to manage my finances better. Maybe the economy will shift, or I'll discover an unexpected opportunity. For now, I take it one day at a time, trying to find small moments of peace amidst the chaos. I want to believe that my dreams aren't completely out of reach, just delayed. That the system might feel like a cage, but it's not permanent. Someday, I'll look back on this time and see how it shaped me, made me resilient, more compassionate, and ready for whatever comes next. Until then, I keep going, even if it feels like moving forward is the hardest thing in the world. Because giving up is not an option, even when the world seems determined to keep me down. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.